Alright guys, yes, we are back with a new video. You can see we are back in my YouTube studio. And yes, today I want to talk more about the Sony a6700. I know we have now the mid of 2024 and the Sony a6700 has been around for a while now. I actually got the Sony a6700 this year in March, and I wanted to talk about if it's worth to buy in 2024, and I wanted to give you my opinion on it, what I think of it. And I use so many other APS-C cameras out there. I use, for example, the Sony a6000, the Sony a6400, I use the Sony ZV-E10. I used a lot of full frame cameras, and I wanted to compare it and give you my honest opinion. And I don't really want to go into the technical stuff too much because there's so many YouTubers out there who have talked about it and gave their opinion. I want to give you my opinion on the practical stuff, what I noticed, how it felt to photoshoot with the camera, and then I want to compare it, of course, to the others, and at the end let you know if I would buy it. So what I definitely noticed when I got it was that it felt amazing. It felt like a camera. You were holding this camera, the grip felt insane, much better than the other cameras I had. I mean, you can see I have big hands, and with the Sony a6000 it's such a tiny grip, and sometimes it just feels like I'm holding a smartphone or at least something else than a camera. The Sony a6000 is so small in comparison to the Sony a6700. And what I also liked about the Sony a6700 when I got it was the menu system. It's really nice. It's actually also a bit different than with the Sony a6400, a6000. And this is something I really enjoyed with the Sony a6700. It was like a pretty new interface, and I feel that it was also a good step for Sony to upgrade the menu system, to get something new. I like especially the first page where you have all the settings listed, and yeah, they did a pretty good job. It's really good for photographers who want to be quick with the menu, who want to find settings quick. Especially on a photo shoot, guys, you have to know where the settings are, and this helped me a lot with the Sony photos. I mean, with the Sony a6700 and the photos I did. And surprisingly, what I actually pretty enjoyed, I'm actually a photographer who hates flip-up screens, but the Sony a6700 changed my mind on the flip-up screens. So I used the Sony a6000 and I still use it today, guys. You can also check out my other videos on my YouTube channel on the Sony a6000, or if you want to watch my other videos on the ZV-E10 or Sony a6400, you can check out all the videos after this one. And the Sony a6000 has like this tilt-up screen, and I really enjoyed using the Sony a6000 with the tilt-up screen for a long time. But when you do like photography, it's actually pretty good to have like a flip-up screen instead, because you can like even go lower, and I'm a pretty big guy, guys. I'm very tall, and for me, especially with my back, when I have like this tilt-up screen, I cannot really change it to this tilt-up screen, which you can see now from the footage I've done. And this is pretty good, guys. This really is a cool feature for photography, or even, guys, when you do video, or when you do like vlogs here in the YouTube studio. You can see yourself with the Sony a7 III, guys, which I'm using right now. I actually have this cool flip-up screen I got from a company. You will see now. It's pretty amazing what you can do with gadgets you can buy online to support you with your photography. But I can put it on top of my camera, and that also works. But the flip-up screen is really good feature, especially if you are vlogging or are doing like photography. It really helps because you can like move it in so many different directions, and that's pretty insane. Another feature I liked and this is probably the best feature around the Sony a6700, is the autofocus. And I did a lot of video footage, especially my photo shoots, and I was amazed how good the autofocus was on this camera. The autofocus was so good that most, like 99% of my footage was in focus, and this was really, really good. And when I use like the Sony a6000 or other cameras, sometimes I have a bit of blurred out video footage. So this is really good. And also the portraits are good on the Sony a6700. Photo-wise, 26 megapixels, it is an upgrade. And overall, guys, also with the battery life, which they improved, I'm pretty happy. I can use the batteries much longer now with the new and bigger batteries. And this is much better than the other like APS-C cameras like the Sony a6000, Sony a6400. So this was a big improvement. But on the flip side, guys, and now I want to talk about the other side of the Sony a6700. Although all these features were good, and although I was so happy that the autofocus was crazy good, I also wasn't really flashed that I wished. I mean, I've used like so many different APS-C cameras, like I said before, and every time I use a new camera, especially from APS-C, I'm always asking myself, is this actually a big improvement? I mean, you can look now, the Sony a6000, and this camera I literally got for around 400 euros, brand new. And when you compare the images, do you really see a big difference? And this is something I always think, guys. I always think like, should I have invested the money I got for the Sony a6700? Should I have actually gone full frame instead? I mean, everything above the Sony a6400, in my opinion, if I pay like for the Sony a6600 or a6700, I always think, is it really worth it? Because when I pay more money for a camera, I also expect more. And image-wise, and when I look at the screen while I was photo shooting, I really didn't notice a big difference in quality. I mean, you could say like, yes, it has more megapixels, it looks better, the autofocus is more, but it's still, for the price you pay in comparison to the Sony a6000, not a big difference. And both have, for example, also one SD card slot. There's so many things, or with the 11 photos per second you can do on continuous shooting. There's so many things you can also do with the Sony a6000. And I still use the Sony a6000 a bit more often. Maybe it's because I'm a huge fan of the Sony a6000 and a lot of my viewers have it. But the Sony a6000 or even the Sony a6400 are also pretty decent cameras. And think of this way, guys. When you have like, for example, 1,000, or let's say you have 2,000 euros and you want to get a really good setup, a really good camera setup, and you go into the store, you get, for example, the Sony a6700, then you still have 500 euros left. And then you think, okay, what lens should I get? Okay, I get now the Sigma 60mm. Then you have already like 2,000 euros spent on the camera and the lens. So what I would do instead, and this is my opinion, guys, I would go for the Sony a6400. And I saw so many good deals on the market recently. I saw the Sony a6400 for 800 euros with the kit lens, and I would rather go for the Sony a6400 and then, for example, go for the Sigma 30mm. Then I'm at, let's say, 1,200 euros. Then I would get a camera bag, I would get third-party batteries, then I would get SD cards. Then let's say I'm then at 1,500. I can still then invest the other money in other stuff, or I could save it for future lenses. So this is something I feel always with APS-C cameras. Every time I get a new APS-C camera, I always say, oh, it's great, but I don't really feel the new change. So this is my message, guys. If you really are a photographer who also does portraits, why don't you really think about going also full frame? I mean, I use also the Sony a7 III, and you can also check out the comparison between the Sony a6700 and the Sony a7 III on my YouTube channel. Maybe this also convinces you to also, not necessarily go into full frame, but to also see another side. So yes, this is my opinion, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And what is your opinion on the Sony a6700? Let me know. You can also check out my other Sony a6700 videos on my YouTube channel. There's plenty of amazing content on this camera. And guys, thanks of course for watching. There will be more content here back in the YouTube studio coming soon. And guys, take care and see you next time. Bye.